All right, so let's see. Welcome everybody. I am actually I feel like a DJ because I got all these panels up and my camera's a little bit low, but we're gonna make it happen. So welcome. Happy 2021. My name is Jean-Paul O'Brien. I'm the founder and CEO here at Black Lab Sports. And I'm just so excited to have you here with us. I am going to be your MC tonight. And as part of that, I get to basically introduce you and run the show for some amazing folks and speakers. Um, just to make sure we're all in the right place, though, I wanted to kind of share with you, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Human Performance Forum series. We are going to be talking about brain science and mental health today. And really the agenda is this. So I'm going to talk about the agenda first. You're going to be hearing from two amazing experts in this field. Cody Burkhart, who's from NASA and a really good friend of mine and is doing a lot of stuff in the human performance field. And Brian McKenzie, who's a well-known expert in the space as well. We're going to be hitting in different areas. One, we're going to talk about kind of the current situation of mental health and brain science. So the current situation is going to be interesting, right? Because a lot of things have changed recently. We have COVID, we have even the episode yesterday at the Capitol, and just it's a dynamic time. And so I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. And what I'm hoping that you all do is think about it not just kind of globally, but you take it locally back to your family, yourself. You take it back to your cohorts, your business, your customers, all those different folks that you care about, and we can start to have that healthy conversation. Secondly, we're going to talk about the science today and where the science is. And so, compared to what we knew 20 years ago, it's in a pretty amazing spot. And then last, we're going to get into an experiential brain regulation tool. And I'm not going to dive into too much of the explanation on that, but trust me, we went through the dry rehearsal or the dress rehearsal the other day. I was absolutely blown away. So where did this all start? So Black Lab Sports has been around for about 5 years, but about 2 years ago, I met this gentleman, Professor Ishii, out of the MIT Media Lab, and I bet you that Gunther Weil here probably even knows him. But when he came to see you to talk, he talked about kind of this intersection or kind of this relationship between these four main pillars, if you will. How art questions the world around us, science then explains the world around us, technology enables the solutions, and design articulates the solutions. And basically, this is something we had built kind of from the beginning in our mind, but he articulated it really well, which was if we really want to challenge the world and think about how to solve some of the massive and wicked problems out there, we have to listen to the artist, or we have to think like an artist so we can get outside of the technologist mindset into kind of what's beyond. And actually last month we did that, and I'll review that. Today, what we're jumping into is the science side. And so we're kind of taking the next leap from art into science. And so let's get going. Last month, we actually talked to Gail Falwell, who's a renowned artist, sculptor here in Boulder. And when we asked her the very simple question of, so what today is challenging you? Like what around the world is most challenging? Her answer was connection. We're not connected, right? We've got Zoom, but it's a different type of connection. And the polarization, and she kind of went into a lot of different areas. But what she really was struggling with is, what does human connection look like? And how do I, as an artist, try to articulate that? Then we talked to Will Day. And actually, this is a brand new Will Day art behind me, which is pretty amazing. And what he actually did was say, hey, during the COVID kind of lockdown starting in March, I kind of froze because of this whole uncertainty and this anxiety. And why do humans do that? Like, why do we freeze in that uncertainty? And he had to give up ego and kind of go into this whole nother level. And so there's a really interesting conversation between these artists, how we're actually elevating the game for us about what we should be thinking about. So what we're going to do is from there, we're going into this brain and health, mental health, obviously, because those are kind of in that same arena. Before we get going, though, I want to use a couple of tools here in Zoom. So the first thing is the polling. And what the polls do is allows us to get to know each other a little bit, and especially for your speakers. So this is really helpful for your speakers to know who's doing it. So I'm going to launch our first poll, which is just about what's your avatar. And the idea here is, so in your workspace, how do you see yourself? Or how do you want to see yourself? Or how do you want us to see you? And you're welcome to pick a couple here. Got about half of us responded already, so which gives us another 15 seconds or so. Great. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share you some of these results. And so what's helpful, I think, to see is that this is a really dynamic group. We've purposefully built this community, this Black Lab sports community, around a very, I would say, diverse and cross-discipline ecosystem. So everything from obviously inventors and artists. Love to see that 20% of us are artists. Obviously a very large entrepreneurial population, but we also have a great group of military and government representatives here as well, and some investors. So I wanted to show you that's really across. So the idea here is that for you, this is an opportunity for you to really meet new people, but not just meet new people tonight, but also to try to figure out how you can find people that would actually help you launch a new business or get invested or connect in a certain way. So it's about building meaningful work, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm going to have one more poll for you here, which is I'm going to relaunch this one here. So this is also going to be very helpful to our speakers. The question is brain science. Are you brand new? Are you a newbie, kind of like me? Or do you know a ton? Are you a researcher? I know we have some very accomplished researchers here on the call tonight. All right, go ahead and share this. So again, really important for our speakers to see, but also for all of us to see. What we're going to do is we're not diving deep into a scientific topic tonight. What we're really doing is kind of giving you an overview, but trying to give you an up-to-date overview. And as you can see, and if you're new to this community, it's all about optimism, like being unapologetic optimism. It's about abundance mindsets. It's about thinking about it, even with the scenarios of yesterday and everything else that's going on. We know it's going to be more complex, but we believe that this group, you guys and us together, have the ability to build a beautiful future. So the next thing is going to be a breakout. And again, this is the magic of Zoom. And this is where we're going to now break you into groups of about 4 or so. And we're going to zoom you out into these, we call them, they're basically Zoom rooms. Here we go, it's creating them. So magically, it's going to automatically randomize, put you all into different Zoom rooms. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to send you out there. And so you're automatically going to be jostled into these rooms. You don't have to do anything. What you do is when you get there, though, you introduce yourself for a quick minute. You're going to say hello. I want everyone to have a second to share. And I want you to talk about, as an extra share, do you have any plans around mental health for 2021? Whether it's for you or your family, or your work, or your investors, or your cohort, and just to spend a minute to get to know each other. Now, one point here is I know a lot of times once you get to meet somebody, you're going to want to like share contact information right away. If at all later on, we're going to give you a tool. Actually, it's going to be Emily, my GM here, is going to help us collect. So if you need to connect to somebody that you didn't get to, no problem. We're going to handle that for you. So right now, take a minute each, go into your Zoom room. Again, self-moderate, get through there, and then we're going to pull you back in about 4 minutes.
I'm in Boulder, Colorado. And yeah, I don't really have any specific mental health goals for 2021 except continue sort of riding out the unfun atmosphere of everything that's going on right now, and hopefully, continue to be positive mental attitude.
So I'll go. My name's Nefel, and I live in Windsor, Canada. I've been actually recently kind of getting into a lot of...
I'm up in Seattle, and I'm a naturopathic doctor up here, and am passionate about physiology influencing mental health, of like what's going on in the body affecting the mind, and vice versa, what's happening in the mind affecting the body. So yeah, looking for tools for patients and myself.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah. So, Steve Guerra, I run an innovation firm in sports and entertainment that works with like clubs like FC Barcelona and Los Angeles Dodgers. So just always keeping, I'm a little bit of a performance folk guy. And then also we do some investment as well. And as far as mental health, and it's just terribly important for not only myself and keeping fresh and keeping up to date on things. But then also, I'm actually going to be hiring for 2 professional sports teams in the next probably 4 months. I'm going to be hiring two mental skills coaches. So
Interesting.
so it's always good to meet new folks and increase our candidate pool for positions that we fill.
Yeah. So for sports teams hiring mental health specialists, is that what you said?
Yeah. Both the teams that we're working with right now are going to be hiring mental skills coaches. So coaches who
Cool.
work directly with the players to build out strategies for themselves.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think for athletes, mindset is a hugely leverageable tool, or it's, untapped and perhaps causing the issue. Gets overlooked, I think, easily.
I would say that that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. How awesome. How did you get connected with this group of people?
JP and I met like virtually a couple of years ago, and unfortunately we've never actually met face to face. But
Yeah.
we're very appreciative of the community and that he's kind of created. But in my former life too, I'm a former Marine turned sports professional. So the space that he's created at Black Lab just overlaps very, very well with my passions and the space that we work in.
Awesome. What sport? I think it was through Brian McKenzie. I'm an athlete, and it might have been through Kelly Starrett. I read one of his books, and I think Brian McKenzie was working with him at that time doing breath and I think running mechanics. I just really appreciate, their passion about going back to the foundational principles of how the body works.
That's fascinating. We'll definitely have to connect offline then.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome back. How was that? Everyone got to meet someone new?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. I see everyone's, looks like we got lots of screens on. And again, this is, hey, Brad, I saw that. How are you, sir? Good to see you. Welcome everybody. It's good. So again, the whole idea here, and I'm going to steal a line from Brad Chester, who's I just saw him on the line here. This is all about purposeful collisions, right? The idea is about smashing us all together in order to create what I think about as this amazing culture of the ability to do that. So with that, let's talk about what we're up to from a human performance perspective. Black Lab Sports, just to give those who are new to our community to understand kind of a framing of what we're about. Our purpose in life is to propel humanity forward. And we do that by inspiring, activating, hyper-enabling people just like you to design and create a beautiful future. It's kind of the simple mantra of, the future is not created. And if we want it to be beautiful, it's up to us. So why not? Let's do it. And our why is the reason that we've done this, and this was from day one, is really interesting. We set this off from day one 5 years ago because we believe that resilient, mindful people, even in hard and uncertain times, will make a world better for all. And for the folks who've been part of this community for the past 5 years and even the past 2 years, past our first Human Performance Summit, recognize that. And we've been through uncertain times. And I think that we're probably going to see even more uncertainty grow, and as the changes grow and as technology grows. So having the ability to have a community like this to work together and really build meaningful work together is the whole point. So I am going to jump into our first speaker, and I am super happy and privileged and honored to have Cody here with us. I first met Cody a couple years ago. He's a graduate from CU here in Boulder, Colorado. He is a lab chief at NASA, human performance specialist. I'm going to let him introduce himself as well, but Cody and I have been working together on some most recent projects and even on this specific forum. A wealth of knowledge, and so I'm really excited to have him. Cody, welcome.
Thanks, JP. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. As JP said, I'm Cody Burkhart. I'll kind of roll through my intro here. I like to refer to myself first as being a husband and a father. Self-proclaimed nerd. As JP had mentioned, I do work for NASA. I run a human performance lab there called SCION, which is Physiology, Sensing, Intelligent Optimization Nucleus. It's a fancy lab for trying to build Iron Man. And I also, because of the current time frame, I'm running the Burkhart Homeschooling Academy for Aware Homies. I've got a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old, and so I'm supporting them here at the house. So with that, I'll kind of move away from me and kind of step into why we're here. One of the things that I'm kind of really interested and passionate about is just the neuroscience perspective of how do we operate. What are the things that create us in a layered cake standpoint, right? What are the depths to us? Not just the idea of our behavioral characteristics, but getting down to the cellular level, how the physics of things work. And so I kind of, in talking with JP about introducing this brain and mental health, wondered, is it just me as I'm getting older? Is there more load in life, or are things seemingly getting more difficult as far as a general standpoint? And I would say that the information I found when researching that is to suggest that over the last few years, and this goes up to 2015, not just with children, but with adults, right? We're seeing an increase of those visiting emergency rooms and having a mental health discharge, right? I think my audio is actually not working super well, so I'm gonna go ahead and try and switch over my microphone here real quick.
Hopefully that's better for you. But if you could do the next slide. The bigger piece that I recognize while looking at this is not just that it was growing, right, but growing now. And obviously we can say, it's very sensible. The whole world experienced a very dynamic change very, very quickly. But these figures were kind of really impressive to me, right? The idea that we have these nearly 30% increases across anxiety and trauma, and then we have these feelings of suicidal conversations, right? So I decided to do a little bit more looking, and next slide, trying to say, what are the local months piece, right? And in this case, looking at the summer, it's not just anxiety or depression, right? It's the combinations. It's all the above. And beyond just the fact that these things were growing during the pandemic phases, next slide, what we also saw is that people were coming in and getting more and more of the, we'll say, other tools to help them, right? They were recognizing that they didn't have the tools they needed themselves. And so things like anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and anti-insomnia medications have gone up over the last year. So beyond that, then let's go to the next slide. I just want to show some things because, right, when people say numbers, it's hard to really kind of draw what that means. But when we talk about something like 19% of adults experiencing mental illness, it's 1.5 million people. Right? When we talk about ideation of suicide going up 0.15%, it's 460,000 people.
And that's just in the past year, right, Cody?
Yes. And these are all new statistics, right? And I'm not saying that statistics are perfect, right? That's not the argument I'm making. I'm showing you across a bunch of different, avenues, right? There's a lot of these symptoms pointing to the same kind of root causes. And over here on that orange left-hand side, something that's at least really important to me is how is it affecting children, right? I've got a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old myself. And so understanding how these things will weigh upon them is really important to me. And over here, you'll see, 60% of the youth don't receive the treatment that they need. 1 in 3 are still going without treatment, and only 27% of them are getting that consistent treatment that they need. These are things that obviously, from a trending standpoint, they become concerning, right? But I don't look at this as saying, hey, it's so overwhelming. Instead, I say, I know what we're doing in things like my lab, right? And getting into some of these really new technologies. And we're opening up the ability to see some of these really difficult problems as being something that we can actually, kind of crack open a little bit better and stare into a little bit more deeply so that we can really make some impactful change to it. So if you want to go ahead and step to the next slide, what I did real quick is just did a, kind of meta search of neuroscience. And as you can see, kind of this generalized increase, the numbers there at the bottom is, basically the 1960s, 1980s. And you might ask yourself, like, what was the increase besides the fact that we use computers, et cetera, et cetera. But next slide, if you look at these values here, way back in the 1590, 1600 timeframe, that's when we, had psychologia, the release of this first study of the soul. That's also, 60 years later in that time frame, the first real stimulator device, this TDCS, was created. But it wasn't until these 70s and 80s timeframes when we got into some of these more high-tech capabilities that allowed for increased spatial and temporal resolution, something that we'll talk about later, but basically being able to see exactly where something was happening and exactly what time it was happening started to really change the way that we saw inside of this mechanism that we were essentially looking at from the input-output of private events. And then as we got into the 2000s, we started seeing groups like the European Union, the United States, trying to lead off of this human connectome project of trying to say, what can we do for the human brain in order to start creating better representation models of it so that we can start to fuel things in the future. And even so much as at the very tip end of that, and this is going back to the same timeline that I showed you of while we were increasing in our general load in society of adults and children, this is when we started growing tissues, right? So these first human cortical spheroids being grown. And that's leading up to what I want to step into, which is like, okay, there's all this excitement. We've learned all these new things. All this technology is awesome. How do I take this technology and the problem set that I just talked about, right, and marry those two together in a meaningful way? So if you want to step to the next slide, this is what I think is the really great thing about the time that we live in, right? These are the kinds of landscaped technologies that we have right now. The first one is, many of you might have seen Kernel's new FNIR system, a functional near infrared spectroscopy. This is giving us unique ways of looking at the brain. It's not just groups like Kernel, but groups like Artness as well. If many of you may have seen Mary Lou Jepson's presentation on the TED Talks, where she did some really cool stuff with holography, this product line over at Open Water has got some really cool use cases for portable fMRIs. Digital twins, this is beyond just saying the Human Connectome project, but we have groups like IBM who've spent years and years creating digital twins of factories and those kinds of conversations within their computer systems. And now they're moving that same technology and mindset over to trying to map brain and the responsive communication pathways between the different neurons in our body. When it gets into transcranial electric and magnetic stimulation, I think in the audience right now is one of our close friends, Dr. Emiliano Centernecci, who is the world's renowned expert in transcranial direct stimulation. He over at Harvard is doing some really great things in the research avenue, but then there's also companies like Neuroelectrics and those types of at-home capability companies that are opening up our, I'll say, avenue for testing and our avenue for understanding. Many of you have obviously seen the Neuralink and groups like Podromics. They're doing the brain-computer interfaces. And this is, again, tying that kind of science fiction idea, the idea that one day we'll be connected deeply to those computer devices, this cybernetic future. And so when we step away from these kind of technology pieces and step into some of the other things that we can still say are technologies, but not necessarily digitizations, are things like neuropharmaceuticals and nootropics, not just the Qualias and those kinds of businesses, but also now groups like Pfizer who have moved away from that are starting to move back into those realms. We're seeing early signals of their transition into some of these different drugs. And then we also have these new, fungal and microbial spaces. We're now talking about, like what Johns Hopkins University is doing from a standpoint of opening up the unicorn exploration of psychedelics, and then groups like MindMed, Compass Pathways, et cetera. But really, you start seeing all these really tremendous technologies, and then we start packing them together. What we've learned from all those technologies in the 70s are fueling the capabilities of these technologies, right? We learned where things are happening and how to gather them accurately. And now we're being able to pinpoint technologies to, attack those different choice trees. And so while that's a really big order, I think it's really exciting because we have these great technologies. They're going to teach us how to use some of these native technologies. And beyond where we're going to get to with these over the year, we really wanted to kind of say, before we step into this, right, how can we step into some more of those tighter native technologies? And in order to do that, we really wanted to understand what the brain was doing and kind of share that information so that people have a better idea. So before we step into technologies, I think, JP, we have another breakout.
We do, yeah. So I'm going to jump back in. So the brain is as we just saw, it's before it used to be just this kind of black box. Now all of a sudden we've tapped into it and we can see this resolution. But at the same time, the complexity of technology, as Cody just pointed out, we're creating a lot of new human problems, if you will, and the brain and mental health seems to be at the forefront. So what we really want to do is have you think about what's most important to you. What's most important kind of brain science or mental health focus right now for you specifically? And again, it could be you personally, it could be you and your family, it could be you and your business, it could be a product that you're building or a service. It could be maybe because you have a cohort in the military, whatever it is. I'd love to get for you to be a little bit more specific about yourself versus globally. We're going to put you in groups of 4, I think, right now. Hopefully you have a good conversation. Again, quick introduction. Hopefully you meet somebody new in there, but then jump back in.
Hey everybody, I'm Brad. Nice to meet you. JP and I have known each other too long probably, but I work with the military quite a bit and run DefenseWorks as the innovation ecosystem for a bunch of the branches of the military, including special operations. So really nice to meet you guys. I guess it's really quick. The thing that we're interested in human performance is cognitive performance and social dynamics of groups. So.
Yeah, are you doing a lot of work on shared cognition, or what's the cutting edge?
It's kind of like the small unit dominance stuff still. So the SOCOM, even though we wrote the doctrine, 20 years ago, we're really stepping into the cognitive performance space now. And JP, you know how I'm deep into that. So a lot more things are going to go into that, and a lot of folks on this call, as well as some of the larger groups and DARPA-S type stuff, are starting to move into the functionality realm. So we'll see how it kind of integrates into the tactics and techniques and procedures. But we're there to see what technologies kind of envelop that and can be projected out. So,
Well, I think it's going to be two-sided, so I'm excited to hear what comes out of that.
yeah, buddy.
Thanks for being here, everybody. I'm going to start pulling everybody back in just a minute.
JP, I got to hang out with your dad.
What's that?
You got to hang out with your dad.
Oh, good. My dad's awesome. Hey, Dad. Welcome
JP,
back, everybody.
doing good. Thank you.
All right. I can send you away and I can pull you back when I want you. So what we're going to do next is do that. So in kind of a share in, what we do is we want about 4 or 5, 6 of us to come in and share back. What was the most important thing that you heard in the group, whether it was something you said or someone else said? What'd you learn? What can you give back to the team here? Is there any connection that could be easy to share? And the best thing to do is raise your hand, and you could do it like this, but I've got multiple screens. And if you can use the hand tool at the bottom, the reactions, you get popped to the top of my list, and then I can call on you, and then you can kind of unmute yourself. Chris, come on in. Unmute yourself. And love to hear from you.
Hey, how you doing? A key takeaway when I heard the two folks talking in the group is just the basics about drinking water and getting. And I work with a number of athletes who don't and just disregard just the basics, just drinking water, getting sleep, and it changes everything. They don't understand the impact on hand-eye coordination. So it's just the basics. This stuff ain't rocket science, but we taking care of our bodies and just getting that information out. As me, a coach and a sports performance coach, is a big deal, helping my clientele understand.
Interesting. I don't know if Dr. Zach Bush is on the line. I haven't seen him or not, but we were talking about that the other day. He said, most of us, 99.9% of us are chronically dehydrated. So it's a really good call out. Someone else.
Well, I had the pleasure of being with Cody, which was, whoa. I mean, I learned so much in 2 minutes from Cody. We ended up talking about the ethics of the issue and where we're going to go if pharmaceuticals, computers, AI, leads down the road of excellent things for the human race. Who's teaching us and who's teaching our inventors and our production people about ethics and to save the human race so we don't kill ourselves? So we talked a few minutes about that.
I think we're gonna hit on that as a whole topic later, which is a really fascinating conversation. I appreciate you guys bringing it up. I think everyone can start to think about that a little bit as we go into this next section as well, which is what are the ethics when new technology and new capabilities come about. So let's keep that in mind.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get ahead of the game here. Sorry.
No, you're always ahead of the game, Mike.
JP, it's Ron. I didn't have the hand up, so I gave you a clap, but I'm not sure you picked it up. But
come on in, Ron.
Our group spent a fair amount of time talking about the anxiety and depression, particularly amongst younger folks, college graduates, where they most of the young folks in that age group that I'm around just can't seem to get past the spot that we're in right now to see any positive outcome. It just seems as if there's momentum of things getting worse from their perspective and not an opportunity to turn that around. And, a lot of that is perspective. There may be some reality to it, but no matter what, changing to a positive environment and moving forward, and the work that you and your group and peers are doing really helps to move forward in a positive way. And how we get that cohort to just view and get some positive momentum is really critical.
I'm curious if, Ron, if your team in there had some thoughts about some glimpses of hope, or if anyone else on the line has some thoughts about that.
Well, your sister said that they should just follow in your path.
Well, JP, since it's a family affair, I guess I'll jump in. I'm JP's younger brother. But I had the pleasure to be in a group with Jacob Saldana and Andrew Yee, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, both of you guys, please. But I was inspired because both of them talked about resilience, right? When we talked about mental health, at their generation, it wasn't about staying alive, longevity, status, legacy. It was about resilience. It was about inspiration and community, whether they're in business or they're in their own communities, whether they're isolated and on Zoom or elsewhere. So I thank you two gentlemen for sharing those ideas. And I think resilience is what our next generation has uniformly across the board, more than we had this last generation. I offer that to you guys.
Thanks, Will. That was great. Aaron, I would love to pull you in if that's okay on this topic.
Absolutely, JP. Yeah, what question specifically around the next generation and resilience?
Or just resilience in general and some of the things maybe you've been working on or what you've seen and yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I was actually having this conversation with somebody today, how the younger generation seems to really be thinking about this. College seniors, a professor was sharing with me, are scared to become entrepreneurs because they wonder what the impact is going to be on their mental and physical health. And I think as we kind of go up in the generations, we see a lot less awareness as we're getting kind of all the way up to baby boomers in the workforce. And then millennials, we're seeing kind of medium amount of awareness to this. So I think the awareness around it and probably the stigma is sort of falling among some of the younger generations. So I think that gives us a lot of hope about where we're going.
Very good. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
Did anybody have a comment more around maybe tactical athletes or operators that are kind of devoted to a very specific career path and then come out of that? Did anything else come out around those topics?
Hey, JP, this is David. We didn't bring it up in the group, but we are working with some of the groups out at Schriever and Peterson Air Force Base. They're in Colorado Springs, just because they work in a very isolated environment. COVID hasn't helped that, and we have a high suicide ideation rate right now with that category of airmen. So we're doing a lot of stuff right now. We've got some pilot programs with UT Dallas on their resiliency training that we're trying to take out to them. So we're actively doing that right now. Over.
Thanks, David. I'm really curious. I know that there's a few folks from the kind of military here or VA. I know it's been such a focus over the past few years. Is there anything that's changed that you've seen that's been working, or I'm just curious to kind of get the latest update on.
I don't know if we can say that it's working as of yet. I mean, there's definitely more awareness on the topic, and then it's a multiplication factor when you add in the COVID and the social separation from family and holidays and everything that goes with that. So I wouldn't say that it's working. I think we have some plans in place, and hopefully we'll be able to make some headway in the near future. Over.
Yeah, fascinating. I think we have time for one more. What's most important to you and your people, your customers, your employees?
Hey JP, this is Philip Thomas. I'm driving, so I can't turn on my video.
Hi, Philip. Welcome.
Coming from a military perspective, one of the things we talked about and what's most important for us, as the last gentleman mentioned, we're not sure exactly what's working at this point. And I think that's kind of the crux of the issue. But I think as the scientists and everyone figures out kind of how the brain works and we get a lot of those things mapped out, it's going to be tremendously important to baseline our soldiers at inception. And that way we can put surveillance mechanisms in place or maintenance mechanisms in place to periodically check in and see when a guy or gal has kind of veered from that baseline in a negative direction potentially with a traumatic brain injury or PTSD or something like that, and then kind of get them the help that he or she needs. I do agree with the last gentleman. I think the awareness is there. So I think we're trending in the right direction in regards to stigma, reducing the stigma in those things. But we still have a long ways to go. But I think the surveillance mechanisms and getting our guys baseline, actually putting policies and things like that into action is going to be paramount moving forward. That's all I have.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, and the truth is we're all dealing with some kind of mental health. I know I've had my own personal mental health issues. I know it's been close to my family. It's been close to my teams. And so I'm part of it is this conversation is meant to not, to do more of that, share it, but also to make sure that we feel comfortable in this community to really talk about what's real for us. So Cody, I'm going to have you jump back in now, because now that we've kind of talked about something more personal, why don't you come in and help us understand, I guess, the science of what we know today?
Yeah, absolutely. So while I'll say that the first kind of intro piece gave me a good idea of where everyone sits, the goal of this is not to necessarily give you an entirely deep dive, nor is it designed to just be very surface level. We're going to try and talk about a few different pieces about the general dynamics of the brain. And I think the reason that this is helpful is just because, again, I'll be honest for myself. Before I really got into studying and looking at the brain, what I had been taught, or those tools and those strategies that I thought were effective from things like psychology class in high school, they just weren't the things and the tools and the capacities that we now know that we have today. And so the first thing I want to step into is, if we can step back into those slides. I got an image here. For the longest time, we have really had this conversation of what has been kind of called the computational theory of the mind. And it's just this notion that the brain is a computer. And what I kind of want to first start with is just to remove that from your mind. Not necessarily saying that the brain doesn't do computational aspects or those kinds of things, but to look at it simply as, if I just look at this picture here, the idea of a single node connected to another node, and there's some math in between those nodes such that they can create a network and understand the mathematical transfer between those 2 points. In fact, if we can step into the next slide, what it looks like more is, here, this image on the left-hand side is kind of more of that dendrite kind of look. And so besides, when we look at these little branches, I'm not just talking about communication down from the soma of the body all the way down the axon to the next, synaptic cleft, where I kind of make those hand-over handshakes when I fire one and hand it to the next. But I can actually do communication at these branches and locally on these branches. Beyond that, if you look at the picture on the right, this is a picture of, in green, I have a neuron, in red, I have the glial cells. And so this conversation is really poking at the idea that if you see how many red dots that are on there, if we only think that the system is the roads and the highway, but we don't see these supporting features that are there to move and shuttle around resources, we're ignoring how the real communication channel works. And so now we know we have this ratio of glial cells, these supporter cells, that are actually moving things around the brain. So you can see how limiting the idea of just nodes with some math could be on our understanding of the brain. And all of this has come, right, because of the image capacities and the technologies that I showed you that started kicking off in the 70s. So we had all this information back from the 1600s, building up all these models. And then in the 1970s, we actually get to really see inside. So next slide, please. So stepping in here, right, I'm just saying, what do we see? And on the left-hand side here is just an MRI image, but you can kind of split this up into temporal and spatial accuracy, the things that we've gained while trying to build these technologies. And what I mean by temporal is timing. So these are things like EEG. If I put an electrical cap on your head, I'm going to get a very good, accurate time as to when I received that information, when that part of your brain fired. But as to what area, it's a little bit less precise, right? So then I do something like an MRI where I can actually get very good detail on the actual location, but based on what it's looking for, when we look at water and oxygen and those different variable differences, I can't see things in real time, right? This is more of a hold still, right? For those of you who take an MRI, hold still, let me take the shots and let's get those images. And then we start seeing things like functional MRIs, merge those together. But really, we kind of have these 5 points that I think are these discovering impacts. We talked a little bit about the structural, right? And we'll get here in a second to the chemical. But from an electrical standpoint, we are seeing how the brain is connected in very dynamic ways. When you're asleep, it responds differently than if you were to be perturbed when you're awake. So there's these varying levels of consciousness. What is awareness? What is an automatic versus a controlled process? And then what is therefore then time and space? And what I mean by this is your brain decides time and space based on how it receives information. So if I have a lot of extra resources to give attention to the information that I'm being given, right, a flow state, I can often slow down time because time is just my own personal experience of receiving information from the environment. And then we start talking about space, we're starting to see things like how important our ears are to our sense of balance, how important our eyes are to our entire functioning system. And that's really giving us new insight and saying, right, if 60 to 70% of my brain is attached to the visual system and as far as how it communicates information forward and backward, then that means if I start to sample the eyes and look at eye tracking mechanisms, right, I can start to pull new information out of the brain through that direct relationship. Next slide. And so what I want to step into with that chemistry piece is to say, if we're changing structure and we're changing electrical, we're changing function. And what I mean by changing function is if we actually start looking into the brain, we see kind of these 2 big players, things like dopamine and serotonin. We used to think dopamine was kind of a pleasure molecule, right? But it's not really. What we now know is it's more of a error prediction hypothesis. It's basically saying, what did I think I was going to get? And what did I actually get? And the really important point of that, what we've come to know about it is you can never fill that, right? That's what makes the addiction. That's what makes you keep chasing dopamine hits for cat videos as you watch a new one after a new one after a new one, and what makes infinite scroll so demanding. But even more so, if you look at what I'm showing over here, here's just some examples of the different chemicals that actually are composed or are bioavailable when we express these different feelings. Things like love being a combination of 3 different chemicals, including serotonin and dopamine. It's a dual combination of those 2 pieces, right? I want love to be dopaminergic in the hunt, but also when I start to build my family, serotonergic as I start to have the here and nows and build a longer retained life together, right? There is this different play of chemicals. And what becomes very interesting is now that we have a better understanding of what's going on in the brain and how important these different variables are, we start seeing things like, right, how important is my nutrition? How important is my environment? How important is my thought process? If a lot of my information is from top down versus bottom up processing, do I need to start to really change those automatic reactive models that I've printed? And then what do I need to change them into? And so it opens up a wealth of really deep conversations. And, a lot of the conversations that JP and I have been having have also been conversations that I've had with Brian for a really long time, which is, we have all these technologies and they're giving us this really exciting information. Sometimes though, we let it give us the answer as opposed to learning what the problem is and how we should know the importance of that problem, because then we can actually take some of our native technologies, right? And we talked about these in some of the groups I was in tonight, things like meditation, breath practice, hot and cold sauna work, right? Like exercise, all these different things, grit and mental work that we put ourselves through help shape us, help drive us, and help make us better. And so as we kind of, laid out this conversation, hopefully giving you a better insight into your brain and saying, it's not just simple ons and offs and zeros and ones like your computer, but it's a really intricate, complex system. It seems chaotic, but from a deep level of physics, chaos really is just very, very refined complexity. And so from that standpoint, we are trying to create this complex organism, which means we really need to appreciate the complexity of the problems that we're using to solve it. And so before we get way far down into technologies, right, dive off into these really neat experiences that kind of build those like future worlds and possible worlds that you've seen from Cosmos, we really wanted to say, hey, how can we come back to these native things like breath and then really kind of appreciate that and roll through it. And I really think that you guys are going to get a great experience with Brian. And I hope that this information kind of helps stoke those thoughts and allows you to understand how much power you really have over your ability to function with your brain.
So Cody, you're telling me I can't just suck it up and be happy?
Sometimes no, right? There's a limited avenue. And I know that some of the conversations we've had in some of these meetings before have been on things like grit. So there's other research into other different areas, right? But you just have to think about, going back to the original information that we showed, we're all experiencing a higher level of stress. The connections and the relationships that we share with other people are being trimmed as we pulled in ourselves closer to home. And so now we have this higher load. And if I have this higher load and I'm amped up and I'm in this fight or flight environment, right? You can see fight or flight here in the chemistry of life. I'm going to have extra norepinephrine and epinephrine in my body. That's going to make me change the way that I experience, the relationship with my kids. One of the last things I'll share is, how hard is it for you guys? At least for me, it's very difficult to transition from an office to an at-home teaching back to an office, right? How do I make that transition feel seamless? It really requires me to understand how each of them is going to affect my brain level chemistry, and then how I can kind of really prepare myself for those activities with things like breath.
I think it's so fascinating because when we've dug into this topic more, and Cody, I'm just going to kind of highlight it again, because what it means to me, and I think everyone should really listen to this point, which is, I was one of those people who used to think like, just be happy. Like it's an attitude thing. And it's completely, our science is saying it's completely not, right? There's the space and time components to it. But serotonin, I find out just a few years ago, that's produced primarily in your gut. So if you have a bad gut, or you just took antibiotics, or you just got out of surgery, or you were just in a war zone where you kind of destroyed the bacteria in your gut, you can't produce the serotonin that you need. And so sometimes this system, this whole overall system, needs to be in harmony and working together. And so I think it's really interesting as we're starting to learn more about how everything's connected, the chemistry, the electrical side, the magnetic, the energy, and obviously the physical side, how that's all connected.
Yeah, no, you're very right. It's an incredibly complex system that we have to appreciate. And I really appreciate you bringing that up.
So Cody, I'm gonna jump us back into this breakout. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is the ethical question, because if you think about it, if that's the case, there's a couple of things, and Cody, jump in here because I want some examples, but even this information is privileged information, right? Not everybody knows this, right? If everyone knew they need to have a healthy gut, maybe they wouldn't eat junk food, right? Or maybe they can't not eat junk food because of where they are in their household income, or maybe it's just because where they are from an environmental perspective. There's so many other things, but not just in the nutrition side, where we're talking about all of the access, the application, who's going to get access to this information to have healthy brains, to have healthy emotions, to be able to have even a happier life, or a more productive or cognitively empowered life. Other considerations, Cody?
Yeah, because of the conversation that we had earlier, Michael and I, I'm not afraid of AI, but it started to make me realize in the conversation with your dad that, there are a lot of people that are afraid of AI. They're afraid of what it could do, right? And so that becomes another piece, right? If we're saying that these things are derived from AI or ML type experiences, which many of them are, to be able to be that refined level, to have the precision necessary to specify your individuality, right? That's another piece. Like, what happens when we inject those kinds of systems where there are lines of code that were written by other people? Are there issues with how that's delivered, right? How much can we trust those repositories and information? How protected does our data become? Data is a huge one. That's something where we all have to have this honest conversation with where we're going to let our data go, because it's being mined from us daily, and we'd like to have a better appreciation or understanding of where it's going, right? So I think I ask myself, what is the ethical piece to somebody else who's taking my data, right? What are you going to be giving me in return? Can you give me these really quality products that make my life better and the life of my family better? Or are you just kind of taking from me to promote yourself?
So 8 minutes is not a lot of time to figure out all the ethics that are in here. But I think the idea here is we want to start the conversation. So I'd love for you to, again, go in. Hopefully you meet somebody new, introduce yourself briefly. Everyone's got 2 minutes to go in and be part of the conversation. Welcome back. You guys can hear me okay? All right, great.
JP, I had a lot of fun in mine.
Did you? Who'd you have this time?
I had Del, Lori, and Jude, and we had, I'll say, a very spread conversation, but the things that we talked about, I kind of want to get them to everyone because they just excite me. We had presented this conversation right from education, right? And talking about, it's not just about getting these tools to kids, but it's also about teaching them how to use them, right? Like, do you have the resources to actually use the resources? Do you know what you're stepping yourself into? And then Lori is doing a lot of stuff with dream stuff right now, which, by the way, is just super cool. We had, some conversations about what it means to start being able to tap into those spaces, right? Those are different areas of your life. And what does it mean when we start being able to tamper with those and step into those with technologies? And how do you feel that safety and security with your data in those states? And then, Dell has been, we had a conversation about some of the psychedelics research and those things that are, increasing opportunity, but really it becomes this idea of commodification versus the stuff that's really being used for benefit, right? And we run into those kinds of markets all the time where something comes out and it becomes legal and it becomes useful, but others use it in one way versus the kind of therapeutic way that we want to use it. And that just becomes another ethical piece, right? And so there's just this tumultuous kind of different layered cake conversation to it. And I'll say that, at least for me, the part that I added and the part I wanted to kind of like throw out to everyone too is then we start asking these conversations, right? Not just what happens to the children, not what just happens to your dreams or how some of these new age technologies can integrate, but when I stack them all together, right? A very small dose example is if I change the things in your social media account, right? I can get you to see certain things more often. But if I now start knowing how I can prepare you for a meeting, can I, as a company, prepare my CEO by changing the smells in the room and doing certain things for their nutrition and preparing them for that meeting such that they're in a good dopaminergic position? Or can I also, as the antithesis, that opposing company, try and mess with that, right? Send difficult messages to their social media accounts, try and mess with the connectivity of their phones, do things to get them on edge and make them reactive. There's just this very complex relationship that we're creating.
Couldn't agree more. Very interesting. Thank you, Cody. Anyone else kind of come away with a summary? Looks like some people had the similar conversations. I'd love to hear from someone who's a little younger in the audience. I know we've got some college-aged folks. What are their perspectives?
I'll go real quick. So hi, I'm Jake. I'm actually a senior in college right now. So we talked a little bit about the social dilemma, and we didn't go too far into it because none of us are really too far into brain science and really know a lot about it. But from my perspective as a young person, scrolling through social media, having all of that kind of affect my life, I see it more in my little sister who's a sophomore in high school right now. And with TikTok right now, like she is on that all the time. And I see how much that really influences her. And it's harder to get her off the phone than it is for maybe me or, millennials who are 25 to 40 years old right now. But I think there is a big problem with the ethics on that kind of stuff. But also my background in computer science and being a software developer, that's how the algorithm is designed, right? That's so from my perspective, it's a big responsibility for all of us to make sure we're putting the good inputs into the algorithm. So every algorithm has an input and an output. And if you are a person who is using your phone all the time, putting in a lot of inputs, you're going to get bad outputs out of it. And if you're putting political inputs in that are bad, you're going to get bad outputs out of that as well. And so it's a lot about self-control. And with anything, if you're gaining weight because you're eating bad food, that's a self-control issue. And I think, we can't control very much what social media companies are going to do, like Facebook and Google, whoever it is, but we can control our responsibility of our self-control of using that kind of stuff and what we're putting out into the world. I think that's maybe the major issue. And if a lot of people are putting good stuff into the world, we wouldn't have as many problems.
Yeah, Jake, I really want to lean on one of the things that you mentioned there. It's just the idea of those lines of code, right? And this was one of the conversations that Mike had at the beginning when we were starting to talk, is that back in the day before the Enron piece, everyone asked, as he had stated, right, where did all these people get their MBAs? Who taught them ethics? And those conversations are being asked now, right? Who taught all these computer science engineers and who taught them ethics? And the answer is, what do you mean, right? I run into my interns all the time and I remind them, you guys should take an ethics course. You should take a philosophy course. They're not going to be a part of your curriculum, and I hope one day they will be, but you should be taking those, right, to understand that, as you're saying, Jake, each choice that you make is going to have a really big impact down the road, specifically if you become one of those technologies that becomes inherent to humans, right? If everyone latches onto it and says, I need to have this thing in my daily life, and there's that little line of code and you just didn't care that night because it wasn't worth it to you and you were tired, right? You have to know how important those things are. And I really appreciate that you're catching on to that at a young age.
Yeah, I think it's well wise beyond your years, Jake. Thank you for sharing. So I can't wait for this next section, but before we jump into it, I'm gonna put a quick poll out there before we jump in to hear from Brian, who's got some amazing material. I can't wait. It's building here perfectly. So everyone just take a breath for a second. That's a pun intended, I guess. But specifically, I want you to think back before you showed up today on the Zoom. And I want you to think about what your stress level was coming in. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch this poll. Thinking about, you were late, you had to get on this thing. I don't even know what this is. I'm going to see some people. I have to have my video on, or maybe it was the Capitol yesterday, or maybe it's the new year. Maybe the job's not going well. I mean, maybe you're really zen, but I would like to know where you're at, from a stress perspective before you showed up, before you heard all of Cody's statistics and before you heard all about this ethical issues. But where were you from a calm all the way to kind of extremely stressed? Maybe 10 more seconds and I will share with you where you're at. Great. So probably like me, most of us were kind of a little not overbalanced, right? From not being totally calm or stressed, more kind of into the stress side. Some of us are obviously doing some other tools or figuring out how to stay pretty calm. So that's really good to see. We're going to use this later on, so just keep a mental picture of this in your mind. And with that, Cody, I would love for you to take the honors of kind of bringing in and inviting Brian and sharing some of what your background with Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say that Brian was my gateway into human performance. As a quick backdrop, I stalked him on the early days of Twitter. I actually sent a post the other day that said, it's your 10-year anniversary. And the reason I did was I was a kid trying to train for a 24-hour race and not knowing what to do with a family and trying to make that all work together. And I ran into him for anaerobic threshold training to create aerobic benefit and ended up starting a really long career. And I can say that it's been an honor to have been, and I will say, right, I was Brian's apprentice for a really long time. We took that relationship very seriously, like the old school mentor master, like Jedi Knight kind of thing. But truly in a standpoint of like trying to push each other. And Brian has shown me an awful lot of how you just don't accept that necessarily the new things that we have are the right things. There's a lot of research that we've done for thousands of years into things like breath, into training, right? I read things about people running in the mountains with pieces of leather attached to their foot as my guides for how to run better and why we should be learning from those people. And then he started introducing me to this yoga conversation, these breath practices. And I remember being in his house, freezing to death, doing hot, cold baths, where you're jumping in ice water and going between sauna. But in those experiences, I started seeing what he's mentioning here, right? He's a storyteller. The narratives that we had, the expressions that we shared, he takes what we would normally look at from human performance, flips it on the end, goes back to the research and says, what do I know a human can organically do? What can you as a person really do if I give you the skills? And how much of this beast machine within you can I empower to make you better? And so throughout those processes, he's obviously worked with a bunch of different groups, trained professional athletes. And I don't just mean a standpoint of somebody calls himself a professional, but all the way to Olympic gold medalists, tactical athletes, world champions. It's just, he's got a really great background, but he's really down to earth. And I think you're going to really enjoy his personality. And I'm privileged to introduce Brian.
Well, thank you for that introduction. And I'm tickled. And I also just want to say that the fact that you and I are still alive is a testament that we kind of know what we're doing at this point. No, we'll never really know what we're fully doing, but it's an honor, and it's been a privilege to know Cody, and I'm very honored to be here with JP and what he set up with Black Labs. Cody spoke very highly of all of this, and it fits right into what it is I do, obviously, as I've worked even with Cody for the last decade. So, let's kind of dive into what I do. He kind of gave you my background. I actually do just consider myself a biological storyteller, and that'll make sense through this slideshow. Let's start with the first slide. All right, so before we kick this on, this is going, you don't have to geek out on all of the research I've got here on the left. You can if you want, but it's all listed on my foundation, which is hhpf-foundation.org, which is up top. You can go, it's all categorized there. This is not all about breathing, but we do want to understand breath. And if you could play the video quickly, and I will jump back to this. And we may want to just repeat it again a couple times. So just get a good view of that. This is you breathing. It is amplified, meaning it is going faster than normal. I want you to consider this is an inhale and an exhale. This will be the last time. Perfect. So this is our brain on breath. And as we can see, breathing does far more than bring oxygen in and CO2 out of the lungs. It has an intimate relationship with the brain far deeper than just supplying it with oxygen or the body. Obviously, I touched on the research of the foundation, but the fact is we want to look at things like how it directly impacts and affects electrolyte mineral levels in the body. These are things that have been looked at since the 1940s, and have catastrophic effects on our physiology if not monitored quickly enough. How it directly impacts, or how it helps us respond to emotions and cognitive functions. Why breathing through the nose? Something so simple yet not thought about is so fundamental to our lives. How CO2 and pH play integral roles in mental health, and why no animal that uses oxygen is without a suffocation false alarm system, including man. Why is it those who experience anxiety are so sensitive to carbon dioxide? Next slide, please. So I usually do everything we talk, most talks I do, I start with this story. And this story is about the lion and the antelope. And every day in Africa, these two animals get up. They get up knowing that the other exists, and they get along perfectly fine. The lion has a shot distance of about 100 meters that the antelope will allow that lion to be within. It gets any closer and that antelope's gone. But they usually coexist most of the time, no problems. Other animals, different varying things, but this is the lion and the antelope, right? And so when the lion decides it's time to eat, the game is on and survival is on. And this is something we made a deal with quite some time ago that we no longer wanted to really participate in. And that's perfectly fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact is this is survival, and this happens every single day. And I know we've all watched this scenario and we've all seen it, but I want you to pretend right now, maybe even just shut your eyes and think of a dashboard. And on that dashboard, you've got a lion and you've got an antelope, okay? You've got physiological markers. Consider heart rate, consider pupil size, consider respiration rate, consider anything you want to cover that you can think of physiologically on that dashboard. Now, I want you to insert you into that dashboard in your own little dashboard. And one of the most stressful events that happens in your day. Maybe it's driving in traffic home from work. Maybe it's getting cut off while sitting in traffic, or when traffic finally moves, right? Think about when something sets you off and you're on this dashboard. Here's the deal. Next slide. We cannot separate stress physiology from species. So on those dashboards, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between either animal. The only way you know which animal is which is by literally seeing which animal is which. Granted, the lion wants to be there, the antelope does not. Okay. Now, in the varying scenarios we've got up here, the fact is in the situation in the bottom right corner, we simply made a trade-off for what these survival and what these types of stressors are doing to us now. And we get to do that for what we're doing as a domesticated, safer animal by how we handle emotion. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest differences that we can see between domestic man and being wild is an ability to transition. So this is the biggest thing that one of the biggest things we've noticed with animals, even some of our domestic animals, like my dog, right? Like if the postman or somebody comes to the door, they bark, they go crazy, right? They're on it. But then as soon as the postman's gone or whoever was there came in and the dog sniffs them, what does the dog go do? Circles up, lies down and takes a nap and goes back to being a dog, right? What do we do, right? So man's ability to emote seems to be a driver in how we make it very difficult to do these transitions. It's like carrying excess baggage. And so I put a fairly lengthy quote up here from Dr. Gabor Mate, who's done a profound work on all of this. And I would highly suggest getting his book, When the Body Says No, and a lot of this will make sense in what I'm talking about. But emotions carry weight. They carry a lot of weight, and they are attention. And that attention can get dragged through the garden a lot, and it costs money. So next slide. But a simple overview of the brain shows that we are fairly reasonable yet creative storytellers, which the brain knows how to have us respond to things that hurt or feel good. And we haven't experienced that same thing in years, right? We also have the ability to hang on to a lot of unnecessary, painful stuff that has some part of us remain the child, and yet it all goes through a conduit, the brainstem, that for the most part has us completely autonomous, taking a breath more than 20,000 times per day. And this is where that respiration center is set up. It's on autopilot most of the time. Next slide. So this emotion carries weight, energy goes where attention is, and we have the ability to go well beyond primary emotions, secondary, tertiary, and beyond. And so these things start to carry on. And the entire goal, the entire goal of our nervous system is to protect us autonomously. When was the last time you thought about your foot placement when you started walking? When was the last time you thought about getting up out of the chair and how you got up out of a chair? You don't do it because the system learns how to get up. Think about when we're babies, right? Or think about when you've seen a baby learn to get up or stand for the first time. They learn to squat and it's very difficult. Or when they learn to walk, right? It's failure, failure, failure. Then all of a sudden it's just off like a rocket ship, right? Like they're just taking off, never thinking about it again. And that's what the nervous system does. It's there to protect us. Pain is there for a reason, to protect us, right? So the thing is with this nervous system and protecting us is those respiration centers are there to protect us as well. They change at night when we go to sleep. So we all respond to carbon dioxide. It's why we take a breath. Very little in the system, the entire system, is dedicated to oxygen sensing in our bodies. And it makes sense when you start to understand that if our pH gets a little too acidic, we will die real quick. Versus we've got a lot more time if that oxygen starts to drop. In fact, quite a bit more time, which is why when that oxygen gets too low, the system shuts you down. So it prepares you for death. Now, not to get too morbid about that, but the thing is with this CO2 thing is that this suffocation false alarm response is a trainable experience. And this is why you, me, or maybe a few of you could hold your breath for over 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes on tonight, but why a freediver can hold their breath for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes and not be affected in the same way that we are. It's a trainable thing, right? So this is what we want to really drive home, is that the brain, although yes, we're getting oxygen in there and we're CO2 has a part in it, we're still doing a lot more than just getting those two mechanisms in there. We're massaging the brain, we're moving cerebral spinal fluid, we're clearing things out. Next slide. The simplest way that we like to explain this is the autonomic nervous system. We like to look at as when the mouth is open, we are in our survival state, and when the mouth is closed, and the nose is working, we are in more of our calm, creative state, or our parasympathetic state. Now, that doesn't really mean if my mouth's open, I'm in a survival state, right? But the fact is as I'm talking right now, my arousal state is up and it's tuned up. And it's not just because I'm talking. It's because I'm actually offloading more carbon dioxide, which is constricting the blood vessels, namely to my brain. And I'm starting to make a change in order to stay in this heightened state. I'm starting to focus more on what I'm doing. This comes with consequences. And it leans us physiologically more towards using more glucose and more glycogen, which is because there's less oxygen availability. So overbreathing in most cases is happening when we are mouth breathing. So when I'm talking, yes, I'm overbreathing. I'm more sympathetic dominant in tone, and my real only filter system becomes my tonsils. From the nasal breathing side of things, so when I stop talking, I should really default back to breathing through my nose. I increase carbon dioxide in the system. I can't release as much carbon dioxide. Therefore, my oxygen bioavailability goes up, and I'll touch on this in a second. This is calm breathing in most cases, okay? This is keeping more parasympathetic tone. This is where creativity is. This is where rest, digest, all of these fun things we've had that we've named with this parasympathetic nervous system sit. But the real kicker here, especially right now, we've been sitting in a pandemic for quite some time and talking about health and what's going on with it. Well, here's your first stage to health. Your filtering system runs and begins through that nose. You have hair, you have mucus that launch an arsenal with many forms of combatants for the immune system. Then you have turbinates that spin up the air, sinuses that then help with humidifying the air, the adenoids, which are also part of the lymphatic system and are a part of the filtering system, then the tonsils, right? How many people have had sinus issues, have had tonsil issues, have had things that have gone wrong, and yet never even thought, am I breathing through my nose? And so we have this system of dealing with things that we've really run away from. In fact, there's a book that was written in 1867 called Shut Your Mouth and Save Your Life, because a historian who was documenting indigenous culture and civilized culture at the time picked up on the biggest difference between the two cultures of civilized and indigenous culture was that civilized man was running around with his mouth open, and the indigenous cultured folk, all of them, their mouths were shut most of the time. Next slide. So this is a direct link into our autonomic nervous system, obviously from the last slide, and now moving into how oxygen works. You need to think of carbon dioxide and oxygen is more like a yin-yang concept. It's like it's not like there is actually, and it's a principle in the fact that it's called the Bohr effect. And anybody who's had any medical training or of sorts understands that there is a dissociative curve that happens with carbon dioxide and oxygen. You can't get oxygen without carbon dioxide. It doesn't come out of that red blood cell unless carbon dioxide comes in and moves it out. So we have to have it present. And unfortunately, in a society that is a society of over breathers, we're talking probably 80% or more, we are chronically not using the oxygen or breathing in ways that can actually impact the brain and this mental health aspect. And so we've got just a simple diagram on what this looks like, but slow breathing, your nasal breathing, is really a lower respiration rate and really keeping more of that carbon dioxide needed in the system to use the oxygen and to draw even a deeper breath. It's not only using the diaphragm more, but that diaphragm up in the head, in the brain, you just saw how we're moving CSF and blood. Right? The overbreathing or the faster respiration rate moves us more into this alkaline state, but it doesn't use as much oxygen. So chronically, it can have very big problems for us. And this is what we're seeing with a lot of us. Next slide. So here we go. First little exercise. So this is all about control, and this will make sense at the end. But we're gonna start together. I'm gonna guide it in and run you through this. I'll bring everybody together each section we do. So we'll go 3 breaths, then we'll do 2 breaths, then we'll do 1 breath, and then I'll say go for it, and then you can all chime in on how you feel. All right.
If you haven't heard, this is everyone participating. So this is now you get to take everything you learned tonight, and with your breath, you get to see what's going to happen as we kind of work on the brain.
To not do anything tricky, just try and follow along with me, have fun with it. And this experiment will run itself, and most of you will get a lot out of it. And it'll be really impactful and make a lot of sense. All right. So we're going to breathe through our nose because I just talked about that. All right. So big, deep breath through the nose, in, and then exhale all the way out, nice and slow and relaxed. And then all the way in, number 2. And then out, nice and relaxed. Number 3, all the way in. And all the way out. I want you to get rid of all your air on this breath. As soon as you get to the end, hold your breath. Wherever you're sitting or standing, stomp your feet in place as fast as you can, like you're running, holding your breath. Go, 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 go. Just keep moving, moving, moving. You can shut your eyes if you want. I want you to go, 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 go until you need to breathe and take a breath. When you need to take a breath, just take a breath. Go for it. Just keep going. Try and break a record, your own record. All right, good job. Okay. So most of you have stopped. Ready? Big inhale for me, all the way in. Through the nose and relaxed out. All the way in and relaxed out. Hold your breath, run in place, go as far as you can. See if you can get as far as you did last time. Go, 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 go. Just moving around, moving around, moving around. Go, 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 go. As soon as you're done, just take a breath. And most of you are back. All right, with me, here we go. Big, deep inhale. All the way out. Hold it on the out. Run in place. Go. Go, 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 go. Just building, 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 building. As soon as you need to breathe, breathe however you want. Now, find that carotid artery, 2 fingers, right on that pulse, just behind your trachea. All you have to do is feel the pulse and think, what do you feel? What do you feel right now? Feel the pulse, just sit here for the next minute, feel that, and then you can drop it in the comments, or if we're going to post that up, We can do that. Just feel that pulse. It should have gone up if you did the exercise. If you didn't do the exercise, no problem. You can do it later.
Brian, I'm sweating.
Are you? You
Yeah,
should be.
a lot.
Well, you just raised your the CO2 content in the blood, which is triggering things and telling you to prepare for war or whatever else you were going to do. Working out, maybe.
Some of the notes said elevated heart rate and warm body temperature.
Anybody get stressed out? Anybody's panic switch hit? Anybody get
Yeah, I had a little tunnel vision going.
Little narrowing coming in. Some people may not think, oh, I'm not going to freak out doing that, but that is the triggering. So your urge to breathe had nothing to do with oxygen. If you had a pulse oximeter on, you'd be a healthy human being. There's nothing wrong with you. One of the research articles that I put up on in the beginning of this is about panic attacks and the suffocation alarm. And prior to a panic attack occurring with people, signals showed up an hour before things happened. Then when the panic attack happened for the patients, there were zero physiological signs that there was a problem from a clinical perspective. That doesn't mean you weren't feeling stressed out. It just means I missed the signals that were happening. And this goes back to what Cody was talking about. Are we putting the cart before the horse, way too in front of the horse? Because if we're getting our technology out here telling us the answer to everything, remember, the technology is being built off of what's inside here, and nothing has been built yet that's better than what's going on in here. And so if I don't understand the signaling that's going on, what's happening, I now am off. And so is psychology just sometimes misunderstood physiology, right? So sometimes I'm missing what's going on because things are happening around me and I'm just blowing through them. And we all do this. I do this weekly, right? I've taken on too much and then I go take on a little bit more and then I want to go work out, right? And then I'm like, geez, why am I so stressed out right now, right? Well, there were a few things that showed up before that. Next slide. All right, here we go. One more time through. 3 breaths, 1 breath all the way in. This time it'll be different. All the way out, relaxed. All the way in. All the way out. And all the way in. And all the way out. Empty those lungs. Run in place for me and hold that breath until you need to breathe. Don't do anything special. Go, 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 go. As soon as I see a few of you take a breath. All right. Ready? Deep breath in wherever you're at. Get rid of it and in and all the way out. And in and all the way out. Hold on the end. Go. Holding your breath, run in place. Go, 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 go. It should shorten up. This is like the 5th time we've done this. We had a little break and all right, wherever you're at, stop. Here we go. 1 breath in, all the way in. And all the way out. Hold. Go. Run in place. Boom, 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 boom. Running in place, running in place, running in place. As soon as you are done and you need to breathe, here's what you're doing. Deep breath through the nose. Fingers on the carotid artery. Exhale through the nose. In through the nose. Next, exhale out. Try and slow it down just a tad. Then in all the way through the nose. You're just going to nose breathe. And every time you exhale for the next 10 breaths, I want you to just micro slow that breath down to comfort, not to stress. Comfortably slow that exhale down, trying to slow it down further and further and further, and feel that heart rate as you control your breath and thinking about your breath only. Feel that heart rate. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds here. All right. How was that? How was the heart rate? How was the thinking? So here's the important part I want to drive home. Most of you should have felt a heart rate plummet. Okay. So now you have a tool for understanding how to change a situation, any situation, right? So when I'm working with operators, when I'm working with people who are the tactical community, I was just at a firearms tactical seminar. We were talking about this stuff. I talk to kids about this stuff. I talk to parents about this stuff. I talk to professional athletes who are wrestlers, CrossFitters, big wave surfers, you name it. It's all the same conversation, okay? It doesn't matter if you're in a heated argument or if you're in a firefight. If you control something that controls your physiology, you have control of how you're responding, okay? So if I'm in a situation where I don't like how it's going, I do have more control than I think I do. And that's through your breathing. And the moment I grab a hold of this thing, I've grabbed a hold of my nervous system. And so that is exactly what you've done, is you told your heart, slow down, chill out, right? Because if I didn't do that and I was like, what does this breath tell you when you see me do that? Something's wrong, right? So when we slow the breath down and I asked you to just think about controlling your breath, you took your thinking out of it too. So it's hard to actually put a name on what it is what just happened. So your emotional tie to something now changes, right? So there's a complex way of doing this. And this is just a very simple exercise that we do. Look, I look at this stuff in very complex ways where we actually fingerprint individuals and look at it from, hey, how tolerant are you to carbon dioxide? How do you respond to stress? How do you respond to a day, right? So here's a great poll. Like, we're going to do this here, but the complexity of this is figuring out which breathing rhythms do what for me. And that's real simple. And on our website, there's actually free stuff there. And it'll be linked up. My website and stuff will be linked up on this. But you can go there and go to shiftadapt.com and click on breath work. And you can go to a breath calculator and actually do a breath test and see a bunch of different breathing rhythms and how they affect you and how they work for you. Because some might put you to sleep and some might perk you up and make you more present in a conversation that you want to have, or because you woke up in the morning and you want a little bit of coffee, but you don't want coffee, right? Nonetheless, this is very important as to what happened. This next poll, I think, is very important for you guys to understand. This is just a tidbit into what the potentiality of this is. So here we go. What is your stress level right now after experiencing this?
By the way, Brian, I'm not sure if you had a chance to read through some of the responses in the chat, but they're also really good.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I didn't. Yeah, I went to the Cleveland Clinic and did a talk on this, basically the same thing for a bunch of ER docs and nurses, about 100 of them. And we went through this and they were like, what just happened? Like, how did that, whoa, like, talk about learning, they all were kind of tripped out on how this happened so quickly. And yet, I actually had a few of the docs come up to me and were like, I really wish we would have gotten that physiology lecture on the Bohr effect, because we would have actually like stuck to what that does in the ER and how we can help people with a lot of this stuff. So
Brian, real quick, just a question that came in, I think that's worth answering is Lauren saying, does this mean that one should always do nasal breathing during meditation and yoga? What are your thoughts on that?
There is a there's a time and a place for everything and what is necessary. And I don't want to invade certain practices. So certain practices bring on mouth breathing for certain reasons. Some are nose inhale, mouth exhale, but predominantly we are by design supposed to be breathing through this, I'd say upwards of 90% of the time. In my experience in the last 7 years and looking at all of this stuff, maybe more, the transition I've seen from in my own physiology and how I've responded, my entire body is completely different from, and it wasn't like I was in a bad place, right? Like I had more, my tissue is more flexible, more mobile. I move better. I feel better. I'm calmer. Like there has been a major transition through implementing this. One of the key indicators, and because I'm a performance guy, is the foundation of where we really implement this is in training, and it's nasal breathing during training. And so for the first month of training, even with professional athletes, when we get back to training, we actually have them nose only breathe for the next month. And this reorganizes the entire system from not only their aerobic efficiency and capacity, but from the nervous system standpoint and the brain's function, et cetera. I think was there one more slide? JP, you're on mute. Or he was.
There we go. I got it. Fantastic. So this is amazing. So we're running pretty tight on our time at the end here. Yep. So we did have an extra slide, but before I get to that, and we were going to do a breakout session, but I don't want to lose everybody before we go because I know a lot of people have a hard stop. So I'd love instead just to share out. And really the question for our breakout session was going to be, how do you take this back? I mean, we've just learned a new technology. We learned all this information. How do you take it back to those people that before you were thinking about that, maybe need the most help in mental health or stress or in brain? And I'd love to hear from some of the folks here, because again, the idea is this group, this team, we want to be able to build those connections and start to work on projects together. So if you're an investor, find things to invest in. If you're an entrepreneur, find interesting research and technology to really launch. If you're a researcher, find interesting places to tie up and to actually get funding from government. So I'd love to hear from you all. And I see, Gunther, you have your hand up. I don't know if that's from before, but if you wanted to kick us off, Gunther, is there anything here that comes up for you?
Yeah, I did have a comment on the earlier thing, but I'll ignore that. I just want to comment here that my background involves over 50 years of Qigong and Tai Chi. And there are a number of breathing methods, such as belly breathing and reverse breathing and various ratios that are inherent in that tradition. Brian, I'm sensing that you have a strong background in pranayama as well.
Yes.
So that's the kind of DNA of all this stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And these traditional methods are training methods also, and they have really a tremendous amount of applicability to Westerners. But the challenges historically have been very esoteric, and there's a lot of cultural baggage and even religious baggage. So I very much appreciate what you're doing in terms of stripping away, the unessential elements, preserving the core. So thank you for that.
I greatly appreciate that, and I trust me. I usually actually bring up the fact that what I am talking to you and telling you right now is probably greater than 5,000 years old.
Yeah.
And they have been talking about this. It's just we've stayed away because it's been this esoteric, thing that people are like woo-woo about.
Yeah, but you also want to honor the past too, in that regard too.
Of course.
But by the way, and I know it sounds like an ego trip, but I'm 84 and I've been practicing this stuff for 50 years. And it has had a tremendous benefit for my vitality and well-being and outlook at every level. And but having said that, the focus on nasal breathing that you're emphasizing is really helpful, and I'm exploring that right now.
Excellent.
There's a Russian technique, a Butenko technique. There's some. I would
Know
love to
of it
speak
well.
to you. Yeah, I'd love to speak to you in more depth.
Please reach out. Please reach out.
Thank you.
I'd love to have a conversation, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Gunther. Who else? Yes, go ahead. Bobby?
Oh, hi, this is Bobby Das. Yeah, I'm a entrepreneur, and this was great. Thank you, Brian and Cody. I enjoyed meeting a lot of people. I just wanted to, I mean, you can call it self-plug, but I just want to, if there's anyone that wants to work together with our wearable sensor that uses a microphone to measure acoustical breathing. We also have accelerometer for micromotion. I'd love to work with, find out who's out there to explore ways, whether it's a grant or whether, but I really think we've got a nice small little device at 1 inch by 1 inch. It's electronics, but the microphone can really look at inhale, exhale, and if you can't measure it, you can't really improve on it, that expression that people say. So I thank you again for this.
You know what? Please reach out to me. I may have something of interest up your alley.
Great. I'll share my email and I'll reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to, just so you know, at the end here, I'm about to launch another slide, but let's keep on sharing out. We'll be able to connect anybody who wants to connect. We're going to be able to connect all of you. So you can reach out to Emily specifically to do that. There's her email address, and we'll send it in the email that you're going to get just after this event. But anyone else have anything interesting to add? I'd love to hear a couple of the things that have come up and how you're going to bring this back home.
I have a question, JP. This is Charlie Merrill. I have a question for Brian. So I've always enjoyed when I drive to go skiing through the Eisenhower Tunnel to hyperventilate before I go into the tunnel, usually while driving, which my wife loves, and then try to hold my breath through the whole entire tunnel. And it's interesting, like sometimes I can do it, it's no problem, and sometimes I can't. And I try to go the speed limit, but sometimes you panic. But anyway, as I'm talking to clients as a physio, I've been struggling with this movement of like doing high intensity exercise with the mouth closed. And as a longtime endurance athlete, it confuses me to think, why would I take the biggest hole in my face and close it, knowing that that's the best way to get oxygen in and CO2 out? So I've struggled with the benefits of that. That said, I've been taping my mouth closed at night with kinesio tape and sleeping super well as someone who's always been a mouth breather. I wake up feeling good. My mouth isn't dry, no matter how much tequila I drink at night. And I've been surprised with how good I feel in the morning. So can you speak to the difference between like nose breathing at rest versus nose breathing during high intensity exercise?
Yes. So we have a very distorted view on, and I did, and for quite some time, on what capacity and efficiency really meant in human performance. And, I remember doing stress tests and VO2 max tests where my nose was actually plugged and I was breathing into a tube through my mouth only. We went for I have a number of different metabolic carts. We went for a walk around the block once with our mouth open, and then we did it with our mouth shut. And we had two different energy systems. I put people on bikes and held them at 200 watts for 5 minutes, nose only, 200 watts, mouth only, 200 watts, mouth, nose only, mouth only. We would repeat this 3 times. We've done this with lots of people, not just me. So we're talking 2 different ways the body's using energy. And so with high intensity exercise, there will be a time and a place the mouth will open. And it should, because you're going to need your oxygen's not even being used at that point that's going in. It's being used, meaning it's not being used for energy. It's being used to buffer the hydrogen ions and things that are going on anaerobically, right? More so than anything else. But in the last 6-7 years since I started doing this, I went from being able to manage about a 140 heart rate, nose only breathing, to being at 96+% of my maximum heart rate, nose breathing only. We don't understand what adaptation is because we've moved so far away from it because we can get away with so much. And so that long road back to things, and this is, that last slide that I have, is to change something to suit its environment, which is biological fitness, right? But here's a very telling quote from a good friend of mine, Dr. Fergus Connolly. We cannot control or change what we do not understand, even if we could control it or change it in the first place. And so because I can do something easier with my mouth open, does that make it the most effective way? And from what I've seen at the professional levels, it does not. You're talking somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range with a CrossFit athlete with high intensity, breathing the way they are and doing things the way they are because they aren't efficient aerobically enough. And it's a developmental thing, and it takes more time, and nobody wants to take that time to do it. I'm looking more at the long term of this stuff. Granted, there is a time and a place for mouth breathing, but you would be very shocked what happens if a dedication were to come into this. But we've also developed a gearing system where specific patterns of breathing happen. So think nose in, out, nose in, out a little faster, nose in, out really fast, then nose in, mouth out, then mouth in, mouth out. So 5 gears. This removes heart rate training. Heart rate has nothing to do with how you move energy. If it did, chess players wouldn't burn 6,000 calories a day, nor would a free diver burn almost 600 plus calories free diving in the water, right? So heart rate isn't really, it's just a metric for intensity where our breath is tied, as the slide shows, to every piece of energy we are moving. And energy follows attention regardless of motion, thought, or work demand. Just understand that when we moved mouth breathing, we are anaerobic. We are moving into the anaerobic space. We're moving more into this more carbohydrate area, which is more stress. You can be there for some time, but you better return back to the other very quickly. Hope that helps.
Yeah, Brian.
Well said. Thank you, Brian.
I'm going to jump in here and show this quick video that we teed up. It's actually of a young child.
Oh, yeah. So watch this.
Come here. Look at Mom. Sit down. Sit down. Deep breath. Take another one. One more. Shake it off. Okay, listening ears. Good job. Now tell Mommy what's wrong. What would you like? You want a Mickey goldfish? We can do Mickey goldfish. Okay, take one more deep breath. Shake it off. Good job. Let's get some goldfish.
So I don't know about you, but that's a night and day thing that happened with a kid who ended up getting what he wanted because he learned how to regulate himself. And that video went pretty bonkers when I posted it. The gal who posted it on our TikTok, it blew up, but I put it back out on my Instagram account and it just took off. And it's that simple. That, by the way, that child was utilizing a gear 4, nose in, mouth out. I'd get him down to a nose in, nose out, but he's good. It looks like we had a good enough change with him. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.
So this is Walter. I have a question. How does breathing relate to the levels of serotonin and dopamine?
Well, I mean, that's a deep convo, but it has you can have direct impacts on both of those.
I'll throw out a piece here, Walter. One of the things that get into early conversation was that video that Brian showed with the cutaway, right? We start looking at some of the conversations of moving CSF in and out based on how you breathe in and out. So some of those flow changes will change ion concentrations. Also from a standpoint, we talked about those glial cell notes. When we start oxygenating certain tissues or in the particularity of using a particular tissue area, right? If we are more we'll say cortical versus more limbic, then we're going to have a higher density of those neuronal packages. And so those areas are going to have a lot more of that, dopamine and serotonin, at least locally available as we use those tissues more often, right? Supplying them with actual blood flow in those pieces. And so this gets back to Brian's intentionality piece, right? As you thought about that breath and focused on it, you're also then allowing yourself to, correlate different patterns within your own physiology to say, what kind of things do I need to up or down regulate hormonally in order to get to those set points?
Oh, so interesting.
That's very interesting. I'm curious on the sleep question, Ken, right? You're here still. Have you done any studies? Ken's got a sleep lab here at University of Colorado. Have you done any sleep studies on kind of breathing and prepping? I'm just curious.
Our laboratory hasn't done that, but there's certainly been research looking at this type of thing for treating insomnia. And there's some evidence that it can actually help reduce the stress associated with, the racing thoughts and things like that prior to bedtime. So certainly there's implications for trying to improve sleep health there.
Oh, fascinating. Thanks, Ken. Well, let me get through a couple of finishing items here, and then we can stay on as long as you'd like. I know it's getting late in some parts of the world. This screen up here has some key information. We're going to send you all this information. We are going to try something new. We're going to try to keep the conversation going on Clubhouse app. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a conversation app over audio only. We're going to try to do that next Thursday. So if this is interesting, or if you want to bring other people to the conversation, a bunch of us will jump onto that and start the conversation and see where it goes. If you start to do some work together, we'd love to hear that. The whole value that we're trying to bring at Black Lab to you is to kind of create these connections and create projects. So if you do connect with somebody, or if you do start a conversation, or even a project or a funding or some kind of joint venture, let us know. We won't publish it if it's confidential, but it allows us to know that we're doing the right things to keep this sort of programming, if you will, together. And of course, if you want to join us in a more serious way, we do have a mastermind group at Black Lab as well. Some other thank yous. Again, Cody, thank you very much. Brian, thank you very much. Emily, thanks for keeping us on track and everything. And then I'm going to open up to you all. So we're happy to stick around and answer more questions. I just wanted to make sure for those who had to jump, you had a chance to make sure you get some of this key information. Anything else to bring up? Any other questions for Brian or Cody?
I'll jump on. Just want to say, appreciate, Brian, everything you put out there. I mean, all the content that you guys put out on Shift Adapt is amazing. All the resources, all the webinars, all the things that you guys do is great. I've been through the Art of Breath course down in Austin, and it's been, transformational. As just as far as like finding it at the right time, with the body breaking down due to injuries, and trying to see what we can do to move, cardiovascular health forward and increase VO2 without being able to move much. The breath has been implemental in that. And this past year, I own a few gyms and some superfood cafes. And then kind of the next iteration was to try to tap into, wellness and bridging the gap between the esoteric woo-woo breath work into the bro-ass 24-hour fitness guy pumping his guns, and see how, me using my gifts and my platform to kind of bridge that gap as being the occasional bro-y person, but kind of having a deeper purpose behind it. So we opened up Space Bar Wellness, which is create space to breathe, adapt, and recover. And kind of our whole modality was to bring small groups together, hold them accountable through personal training on the breath work and recovery front, and kind of start them off into a small group setting, scheduled out throughout the day, similar to like maybe a yoga studio, and where, a group of 5 people would get together. We'd lead them through breath exploration, doing different, breath holds and trying to progressively increase CO2 tolerance, individualized to where they are, and then take them down to cold plunges and saunas, and then do that in the group setting as we facilitate conversation and kind of bring back that traditional sauna experience to connection and just really create that space for people. Unfortunately, we opened up, about a month before the shutdown. So really building that in-person community that was such a big component of what we are intending to do has definitely been a challenge. I mean, 10 months in, we're still there, which I'm just kind of stoked that I just, stumbled upon this webinar to jump on, because I mean, it's fucking daily conversations about closing, you know what I mean? And this just gives me a little bit more inspiration that this is the direction that ultimately I need to hang on to. And whether, you know, this spot in Pasadena in California where I pay a lot of rent needs to go away, but the bigger picture of staying true to this concept and delivering it for the people that I think don't necessarily have access to it, or it's not getting delivered to them in the way that resonates with them, that I need to stay on this path. So I appreciate it all.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate you back, man. Stay your course. Stay what's best for you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Last call. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I got a question for Brian. Brian, do you have any feedback for those genetically with high blood pressure and the breathing thing? Have you done any work or just any overall feedback on how to address that?
Certainly, but Cody's done some work himself on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Chris. I had high blood pressure and have had it for the majority of my life. I'll say part of me used to think it was genetically biased, right? But part of it too is just choice tree, right? If you're a dopaminergic person, you kind of lean into the wind, you're going to be a little bit more beat out more often. But I don't sleep. I don't take good care of myself, right? Those are all the things I ran into when we first started talking about this breath. And what I really started to do was do a lot of the apnea table pieces, a lot of the box breathing structures that Brian's mentioned. And so you're basically trying to build that relationship with the CO2 tolerance. And as you start getting better at that, is also starting getting better at using your nasal pieces. A lot of this is like, you know, single nose breathing styles, right? So breathing in through one nostril and not the other. The reason being is once you improve that paranasal system, you've got things like enosynthase that you're vibrating inside there every time you breathe your nose, and you're getting this nitric oxide that's flowing into your bronchial tubes and your bloodstream. So you're starting to get your body capable of controlling that vasodilation and vasoconstriction a lot more dynamically. And I think that's what improves it, right? You get better at adjusting your set points and understanding that your set point is too high and that you just need to back off of that ledge. We feel it in other states, but that place I think is the biggest for me. So I definitely look at my apnea tables and nasal development.
Chris, if you go to our website, Shift Adapt, click on breath work and go do the CO2 tolerance test. So it'll be the breath test. You'll see apnea breathing exercises and you'll see cadence breathing exercises. I would be doing some of those apnea exercises, like doing 10 minutes straight of one of those exercises. Like if it says 4, 12, 8, right? You inhale for 4, hold for 12, exhale for 8, inhale for 4, hold for 12. Do that for 10 minutes straight. Learn to do that sort of work. You will see a change. And when that gets easy, you go up. And when that gets easy, you go up. And you will see your heart will have no choice. You're literally training your heart rate to go down. Gotcha. and work differently.
Gotcha. Okay, I appreciate that because I work out hard. I thought, and genetic may play a role, but still being older, working out hard. Now they want me to do sleep studies, and I'm preaching breath work to everybody else. And I really have it dialed in on myself. And then I joined the member site, so I start doing that and see what happens.
Yeah, do that.
All right, appreciate that.
Let us know how it goes.
So who? This is Walter. Who did the experiment of sleeping with a physio tape? Is that person still on?
There's a lot of that, and
there's a lot of people who do that.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I just tried as athlete to run slowly, and I could never do it. I tried it while rowing and I gave up after trying it for a year, and then a few nights of just taping my mouth while sleeping. I can't even imagine breathing through my mouth at my computer while working out. Still, yeah, when I'm full on high interval, I'll have to do some mouth breathing, but it was like the magic pill. And it has a hole, so you don't suffocate overnight.
I've got to try this.
I'll be honest with you. I use it on my 7-year-old. That sounds like extreme, right? But honestly, like when we didn't even use it with a hole in it, right? Like you can get tape that'll break away. So paper tape does it really well. Some people, like with me, I have to use like actual like waterproof tape. Like you think you're going to freak out and you're going to suffocate, you will wake up, right? You're going to notice that something's wrong. But for a lot of people who still have that freak out moment where you're not really sure and it's new and it's different, that coverage of your mouth is a pretty big deal. But even with my 7-year-old, that's what we use to try and just change his pattern, right? Because as it was just mentioned, a lot of these autonomic responses, right, are slowly built over time. Some of them are designed initially just to protect you because they're kind of innate as far as those mechanisms work. But some of those you start to build over time with trauma and response. And so if you've built this useful, development state of staying tonically active, ready to move at all times like a prey animal, then you're going to, want to breathe through your mouth more, right? And so it's trying to get that state regulation to recognize that you don't have to feel like something's going to come out and jump on you all the time. And that relaxation, I think, is what opens up that nasal piece. So if you can give somebody just the pathway to understand that you can manually control that and then get the automatic to kick over, I think it's a really healthy practice.
Guys, I got to, JP, I'm going to have to bounce.
Yeah, I think we
sorry.
got
I've got another.
It's late. Hey, I appreciate everybody.
Thank
we'll
you.
close it out. But hey, thank you again. Appreciate it. It's so good to see everyone's face. Happy New Year. Let's do this again in February. Look forward to seeing everybody then.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks,
Thank
JP.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, JP.
Good
Great to
night.
see you.
Bye.
Nice job.
You're the man.
That was great, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. It's it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
We'll
I look forward to see where it's going to go. I think at least to just one piece, if we could send them that poll, right, and ask them what they would like to hear next time, and just get some of that feedback. But I took pictures and I sent Brian just that bimodal domain to shift full, and he was like, "Wow!" Right, like being able to see it in real time. That's something that he hears people talk about it. But when you actually see the data in front of you, I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think we've downloaded everything. So I'm gonna save all this. We could just. Well, that email already went out.
Did it?
Yeah, because it's 9. Or no, it's going at 9.
Yeah, I have half an hour.
Okay. All right.
Do you want me to try to add it in?
Cody, thank you, man.
Talk to you guys later. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Cody.
Have a great night. So should I actually, did you get all these questions? Or do I need to like download it somehow and see if I
What
can,
questions?
the chat?
Oh, I saved it.
You were able to save the chat?
Yeah, it should be, but it went to some mysterious Zoom file that I need to find.
Let's see if I save. Oh no, that's how do you get it? I should have saved let me stop this recording for crying out loud.
This is the outtakes.
Yeah.